Well, hello everybody again, coming from you from One Step at a Time podcast with your host, Adrian Avila. I'm here today with the wonderful Anna Robles with Yo Soy Amazing. Let me give you a little intro about who Anna is. First off, Anna is a very dear friend of mine. She's an NLP trainer. For those who don't know what NLP stands for, Neuro-Linguistics Programming, it's your homework today to look it up and see what it's all about. I've actually taken the course with her, done many breakthroughs with it. I've done, you know what? I'm not even going to talk about it. I'll let her talk about it. We can go through that whole spiel down the line. But just a little bit about Anna. Anna is an NLP master trainer practitioner. She's in timeline therapy. She's a certified business coach. Anna is an expert in the science of mindset, success in business and in life, coaching business professionals, individuals to grow and maximize their strengths and reaching their full potential, and to achieve the results that they have dreamed of. How many of you guys have dreamed about actually reaching your potential? Think about that for a second. She works with groups and individuals, one-on-one settings. She dives deep into finding what the harmony is with your career and the entrepreneur life, with improving relationships, clarifying their goals and dreams, work more efficiently, as well as increasing the bottom line and profitability. Now, that's a whole mouthful right there, you guys, right? I give to you guys Anna Robles. So let's get started, Anna. I mean, we know your name. We know Yo Soy Amazing. And we're not talking about a soy product here. It's about what, Anna?
So the two most powerful words in any language is I am. Whenever follows I am is actually an instruction to your unconscious mind to follow through with that. So whenever you say I am amazing, you're really telling yourself that you're amazing. When you're telling yourself I am courageous, when I'm telling yourself I'm brave. So being that I am Mexican, I was born in Mexico, my first language is Spanish. When I was coming up with the name of my business, I figured I wanted to create a fusion between my two languages, which is Spanish and English. And amazing has been a word that I've always loved and connect with. And knowing that I am are the two most powerful words. And I also, in my crazy little mind, I believe that our unconscious mind understands more than we give credit to. So even if you may not speak Spanish, whenever you're saying Yo soy amazing, you are telling yourself, I am amazing. So that's my gift from me to you.
That's awesome. Again, this is going to be a pretty fast talking podcast because it's Anna and I. So Anna and I talk really quick sometimes. So we're always in speed mode. It feels like, right? We're always bouncing ideas off of one another. She's one of the reasons why we're doing this today as well, right? She has given me some insight of what we should talk about, what we should get through. But again, my guests sometimes don't know what's going to pop off on these episodes, right? What we're going to get ourselves into. But, Anna, really quick, let's just, humanize ourselves for a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
And so just so that the audience can get to know who Anna is outside the professional setting, right? What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is purple.
Why?
There's this beautiful thing about this eggplant purple. I don't know. And the word royal just came to my mind. Right. So I'm just going to go with that.
Sounds good. Any books that you're reading right now?
I am listening to The Habits of Becoming a Billionaire.
Oh, nice.
And I'm also reading the book that Claudia gave us at Christmas. And I can't remember the name because I go blank sometimes. The Gap.
Yes. Oh, Claudia will be a guest as well on this podcast, so be aware for her coming. That's awesome. What about, do you have a morning or an evening routine? I ask this to everybody. People are already going to get tired of hearing this. My morning routine is jumping into a cold plunge first thing in the morning, right? And in that cold plunge, I sit there and meditate. I sit there in prayer. Just whatever it is at that point. But that's usually my morning routine. Is the first thing I do is I jump into a cold plunge. What's your morning routine?
I am so glad you asked that question because I do have a set of things that I do every single day. And before, I used to be I'm part of the 5 a.m. club. And Yes, it helped me a lot, but I've also been contemplating and I've been learning different things as I'm learning. I'm also learning that I get to listen to my body.
Mm-hmm.
So if my body says I need more rest, I'm going to honor that. Yet, even if I get up at 5 in the morning or get up at 7 in the morning, whatever my body's telling me I need to do, of course, I always look at my calendar the night before so I already know what's on my calendar, but I want to know what I have before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at my calendar about an hour before going to bed and put away my phone at that time. In the morning when I get up, it's about actually making myself some hot tea, like lemon, a couple spices in there. And then I go into my gratitude journal. I wake up and I write down what I'm grateful for and what my intention is for the day. And at the same time, I do my own prayers. And if I have time during the day, then I love to get up and go out for a walk and go a run, whatever my schedule allows. If not, then I get ready for work. And that's my morning routine. And at night, I also go into my gratitude because I want to be grateful for the things that happened that day before going to bed. I do look at my calendar the night before. I look at my calendar. I go into my gratitude and I go into prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also going into hypnosis. I listen to hypnosis right before I'm going to sleep. And then after I listen to my hypnosis tape, I start listening to binaural beats. I think that's the word.
Bilateral or I forget what the other one's called.
I forget what it is, but it's really, it actually calms me down. So, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Just a quick fun fact. I don't know if you know this, but for people who are listening, when you actually think about gratitude, the area in the brain where gratitude sits, they say, is the same place where like worrying is, stress is. So they tell you, in order to be able to hit that, like eliminate the stress or the worriness in your brain, think about what you're grateful for. So going into gratitude mode will actually, they say, decrease your stress levels because it sits in the same spot of your brain.
I completely agree with that.
And it's crazy that, it's not crazy. It's just interesting because like I do start my morning with gratitude. I end my day with gratitude. But even in between the day, right? Even in between the day, I'm like, you know what? Today, like, at this moment, I'm grateful that, I had a successful meeting. I met a brand new person. Like, thank you for bringing that person into my life, right? And I feel that when you are constantly bringing gratitude into yourself, right, and accepting it, it eliminates, or not eliminate, but it just lessens that stress level, right?
Completely agree with you. I think gratitude is actually the magnet that brings happiness into our life.
Mm-hmm.
It brings abundance into our life. Just being grateful for someone smiling at you sometimes is really important because when they smile at you and you smile back at them, you're also gifting them something because it might be the only smile that they receive or the only smile that they see.
Mm-hmm.
So just being grateful for the simple things, like being able to breathe, being able to move my body. Those are the things that I'm grateful for.
Right. I mean, and that's some stuff that people don't take for granted. So, I mean, a few years back, I had a surgery done on my leg, right? And I tell this story to people because I took life for granted in a way. I was locked in a hospital, not locked away, I should say. I was in a hospital, right? Had the surgery. I was not allowed to get up for days, right? At the same time, my room didn't have a window, right? I didn't have a window, and I couldn't see the sunrise. I couldn't see the sunset. All I had to tell the time was the clock up above. And I didn't know if it was day or night unless I looked down the hallway and was able to see the sun shining in through another patient's window. So I didn't get to see a sunrise. I didn't get to see a sunset, right? For days. Now, I don't know how some people were able to do that, right? I was there during the Christmas holiday, and just to be laying in that hospital and not knowing what time of day it was, sometimes it was like stressful. So like I make it a point that every day I either see the sunset or I see the sunrise, if it's possible. On rainy days, you're not gonna be able to see that, right? but again, it's like man, like the small little things we take for granted, right? And so that's why I tell everybody, it's like, you know what? It's a good day to be alive no matter what, even when it's raining. Here in Southern California, right? We had rain for a couple of days and people are like, I want this rain to end. And I'm like, it's beautiful though, right?
Exactly. I'm over there like getting videos of the rain and the sound of the rain because it's so beautiful. It's just like such a gift from God,
Yeah.
from the universe, and from Mother Nature.
Yeah, I was standing in the backyard and I was just standing there and I'm like, just hearing the drops hit the roof, hitting the rain gutter pouring out onto the floor. Like, just to be like one with nature at that point, right? I typically I'll ground. For those who don't know, grounding is, taking your socks off, placing your feet on the grass for a while and just letting the ground absorb all that, kind of balancing you out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do that on a weekly basis. Typically on the weekends, I'll sit out there with a coffee, reading a book, and just sitting there with my feet hitting the grass. And I wasn't able to do that this past weekend, right? And I was just like, what the heck? But you find out oh, you know what? But you got something else better, or you got something just as good. And so I liked that feeling behind it. And so when the rain was just there, it was just being able to relax and hear the droplets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how your mind just quiets down.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's just man, this is refreshing to just not hear anything but the raindrops hitting.
Yeah.
So, grateful for when it rains too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was enjoying it. I couldn't go walk, but I was enjoying the sound of the rain.
Right. And that's the important thing. You enjoy the little moments in life, right? And being
Absolutely.
grateful for it. So, Anna, I know what NLP is. Some people who are listening might know what NLP is, but you know what? Give us a rundown of what NLP is.
In simple terms, the NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming.
Mm-hmm.
And so neuro is the nervous system. Neuro is also the cells in our body. Linguistic, it's the words. So basically the words that we heard at some point in our life, when we were born, when we were when we were in mom's tummy, all of that created a program in our subconscious mind. So the words that were being used created a program that attached themselves to our nervous system, into our cells, and into our subconscious mind,
Mm-hmm.
which dictates how we live our lives.
Right. And words are a very powerful thing, you guys. After taking, these classes with Anna and just going through the whole program itself, it's amazing when we talk about what words can do to us, right? And she says the two most powerful words in the English language is I am. I am. I am what? Right? And so every day, my morning are my 5 I ams, I tell people. Right. And so they change up from day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I am powerful. I am honored. I am, respected. I am loved and I'm caring. Right. So it changes on day to day. And even right now, it changed from what this morning was. Right. But
Yeah.
it's truly what I'm feeling at that moment. Right. And so I invite people to actually do that. If you're feeling down, just start off the morning with 5 I ams. It's going to be hard to start off with. But man, how those 5 I ams first thing in the morning can play a difference in the rest of the day, right? And it makes an impact on how we perform.
It sets the tone.
It sets the tone. Exactly. I love that, Anna. One of the things we learn in these classes, right? It's we sometimes use negative words that we don't know what they can cause to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can touch on that just a little bit.
Whatever you want.
But it's, I know people tell us, oh my God, this job is killing me, people will say, right? And what do you respond to that? Because people don't understand that they're giving themselves a command at that point.
Absolutely. So everything we say it's a command to our nervous system, if you want to call it nervous system, to our unconscious mind, to your subconscious mind, whatever you want to call it is actually a command. So whatever you're saying, your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind is going to start looking for a way to prove that to you. So when you're saying, I'm killing myself, then delete, distort, generalize,
Mm-hmm.
you're basically telling your unconscious mind to find ways to shorten your life.
Right.
So I always say, like, well, killing yourself? Why don't we change it to something different? Like, what would you want instead?
Right.
And then I, if they allow me, then I explain on it because not everybody's open to hearing it.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean, we're in conversation. So I mean, how would you reframe that statement, right? What would you tell somebody that tells himself that, right? How would you rephrase the I'm myself, right? I don't want to say it because I don't want to install it, right? But what is it that you would say to make it a better?
So I would say, Adrian, isn't working hard giving you all the things that you want in life?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Isn't working hard giving you the opportunity to get those fun coupons to go out and go on vacation and spend it with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones?
Yeah.
How many more fun coupons do you want?
Exactly. And I mean, I love it, right? Because again, it's about how we reframe what we tell ourselves. And I feel that, in a generation or in a time of where we're at today, right? We're always looking at social media. We're always looking at what somebody else is doing. And we kind of put that negative back to us, right? Like, oh, I'm not there. And we forget, and again, I'll go back to the book, The Gap, right? It's, hey, but where did you start off at? Where are you today? See that improvement, right? You see that step, and that's where people are missing right now, is where they started and where they are today, right? And people are too focused on that 10-year or that 15-year, and I'm not there yet, right? But we forget from where we started to where we are today, we've made progress. And I feel that a lot of us entrepreneurs out there don't give ourselves the credit for it, right?
It's true. I see that so much. I see that, and I've done it myself before because I didn't know what I know now. But we have this game that we play. We're comparing ourselves to others. What we forget is everybody's looking at the iceberg. Everybody's looking at the results. Everybody's looking at the things, the shiny stuff, the pretty stuff. No one really gets to see all the sleepless nights, all the rejections, all not having enough money. They don't get to see that. And that's what gets posted a lot on social media. So what do? We go in there, we're looking and compare ourselves. Something that I learned from my new mentor is stop looking at people that do the same thing that you do, because then you have this tendency to compare yourself. And just remember that every single one is unique. Everybody started at zero, and some of them may be driving the Ferrari, some may be driving the Prius, but they are still going in the same path, the same journey. So stop comparing yourself to the Ferrari and just see how far you've come.
Yep. It's so true, right? I mean, we've all been, we're all guilty of it, right? One way or another, we're all guilty of it. But if we take a step back and just give ourselves credit and love for what we've accomplished, right? I feel that us as a society would be able to take it to the next level, right? But everybody is in competition with somebody else when the true competition is yourself. Right. And so that leads me into why we're doing what we're doing on these podcasts, right? It's like we're getting to the grit of it. And like you said, people only see the tip of the iceberg, which is the fame and glory, right? But, we all know the iceberg is big underneath the ocean, right? And so those big things are what people don't see, our endless nights working, the stress that we go through. I mean, I've gone through stress like there's no tomorrow, from time to time. But it's about how we are able to get out of that situation, right? I mean, some people who are planning on being entrepreneurs don't understand what they're getting themselves into, right? I mean, like I tell everybody, if it was easy, everybody would be an entrepreneur, but it's not, right? But it takes skin in the game.
It
right?
takes grit.
It takes the grit. I
Yes.
love it. So, I want to ask, what has been, and I use failure as, I would replace that with what is your, with lesson. So what is the biggest lesson that you've ever had, and what did you learn from that lesson or the experience?
The biggest lesson that I've had, um, it's kind of interesting. And the interesting part is I have in the past, and there's this like fine line of not trusting enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I kind of used to put a wall around myself,
Mm-hmm.
and because I didn't trust people and I didn't trust what the outcomes want. But then at the same time, there's this fine line that sometimes I was too trustworthy,
Mm-hmm.
and I would trust. Maybe it was a shiny object. I don't know. But sometimes trusting and not really doing the research behind it. And I have a tendency sometimes like I'm just gonna do it and I just do it.
Yeah.
Like I just take the bull by the horns. And that's where some lessons have been, where I've gotten hurt, where I've been, embezzlement, other things, happen in my life that were sleepless nights.
Yeah. And I mean, those sleepless nights though, it's like your come to Jesus moment is that people will say it's like the breaking point, right? So when you like, what were those breaking points though? Like, what were you going through at that point?
A little bit of beating up myself. It's like, how did I get myself in this place? What was I thinking? Like like that self-talk starts.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, okay, I'm just going to give myself permission to beat myself up for a minute or two because I'm human. I am not perfect by any means. And so it's, okay, so you screwed up. Fine. Now, how do we fix it? How are you going to fix it? What are you going to do? And sometimes you just need to cry, and sometimes you need to call a friend and say, or sometimes just like allow thoughts to come and just like writing them down, whatever happens. But yes, there's been times where like, how did I not see that? Man, that's costing me time. It's costing me money. It's costing me a lot. Emotion, because there's no price for emotion. There's no price for beating yourself up, but it's okay to say, you know what, I screwed up.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, all right, let me cry for a little bit. Let me feel sorry for myself for a second. Now, how do I get up? How do I fix it?
Yeah.
It hasn't always been easy, but.
No, it hasn't. I mean, I could tell you there's been nights where I'll just sit there in bed and I'm like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. Mm-hmm. This fire can't be put out at 1:00 in the morning. Like it has to wait till tomorrow. But allowing myself to give myself space in that sense, right? And to be able to be like, okay, tomorrow is the day we attack this because there's nothing that's going to be done tonight. And so, I mean, like you say, sometimes you just got to cry it out. People look at me and they're like, man, Adrian, like you hold yourself so well. Like, and I'm like, man, like if you only knew, right? if people only knew like what's going on in our mental state, right? Mm-hmm. And I tell people, it's like, you know what? It's the self-talk that we give ourselves. And so that's why I ask, like, what was the self-talk that you tell yourself when you're in those difficult situations, when you're beating yourself up, but where you get that epiphany of, boom, like, oh shit, this is it, right? Because remember, everything we do has a root cause, right? So when you get to that root cause of why we self-sabotage, like, how do you address that?
So after giving myself permission to cry it out, allowing myself to feel that, the next thing that comes to my mind, it's like, okay, enough is enough. Stop being the victim. Mm-hmm. I'm giving myself a command, stop being the victim, because literally that's what I was being. I was feeling sorry for myself, and I want other people to feel sorry for myself when we're crying it out sometimes.
Right.
It's okay, Anna, enough is enough. Now and sometimes it's going back, Anna, what have you done in your life? How did you get here? What have you done? And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you know what? I did buy my house. I did get a good grade here. Start like looking for those little things in my life to reinforce who I am or what I've been through.
Right.
But sometimes you have to really dig deep. And sometimes it's, okay, what lesson did I learn here? How did I get here? And then I start writing it out or sounding it out, I do talk to myself a lot, okay? Out loud since I'm alone, in my house. So I start talking to myself and it's like, okay, how did you get here? What was the reason for that? What was the purpose? And then I start writing it out. I'm like, oh, that was the lesson? I didn't believe in this, or I didn't believe in myself, or, oh, shit, I was afraid of something. And I let that get in the way.
Right.
So then, okay, so now once I do that, it's like, okay, how do I change this? What is there for me to learn here?
Yeah.
And then I start really looking at it from creating like a movie, and I start looking at that movie in my head. I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
Right. And so, I mean, we talk about digging deep, right? And so for our people listening and watching this, let's talk about a little bit about what we go through NLP, right? We're programmed at a young age, right? And through whatever that programming is, whatever happens in that time frame, and usually we say it's the 0 to 7 years old, right? That's where everything we're learning, we start absorbing, right? And so it could be just a simple thing where, oh, mom told me no, and because of that, now you're installed with, oh, I have abandonment issues, or I have this going on, right? But people don't realize there's a root cause because of it, right? And how do you tell your clients, like, hey, we got to go back to when you were a kid to address this, because it's popping up now that you're 30 years old, you're 40 years old, and they're like, that doesn't play a part in my day-to-day activities. I mean, how do you talk to your client about that?
So I have several clients. I have a lot of clients, but some of them, we keep peeling a layer, and it's one of them that comes up a lot is money. I can't make money. I don't know how to make money, or like, oh man, money is hard.
Right.
So I start asking, like, well, what makes you think money is hard? When was the first time you thought money was hard? And then they'll say, well, this time. Really? So I start asking more questions to where, in terms of money, and then, when was the very first time that you felt that money was difficult? Huh? And I'm doing that like all at the same time, because I'm working on connecting with their unconscious mind, so their unconscious mind tells me the answer.
Right.
Oh, just tell me whatever number pops up in my head. Huh? And 7. Oh yeah, so when you were 7 years old, what happened at 7 years old? Well, this. Okay, well, let's go back a little bit. Is it 7 years old? And then I'll ask more questions, and then sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't remember that it was at 3 years old when I asked my mom to buy me something and they didn't buy it, and they told me there was no money because it was hard for them to earn money. So they created this belief,
right?
And now that belief has been following them 30, 40 years later.
Right. So, that being said, what was your biggest breakthrough that you ever had going through your NLP when you were getting certified? Because I know we have to go through the whole breakthrough processes, right? What would you say was your biggest breakthrough that allowed you to finally feel that relief?
The one that's coming to mind, because I continue to do breakthroughs. Sometimes I'll call a friend, hey, do you want to trade and want to do a breakthrough? The biggest breakthrough was, I like being social, and I consider myself an extrovert introvert. It was when I was probably my sister's. So I was probably about maybe 3 or 4 years old. So we lived in Guadalajara. And my mom has always liked to sew dresses and things like that. So there was this lady And for me at that time, she seemed like an elderly lady. I mean, that was the perception of a 3-4 year old girl. So my mom, and so maybe she was 40, 50, I don't know. But to me, she just seemed like an elderly lady. And my mom would say, we're going to Rebecca's house. And so Rebecca had in her garage like a store. And but it was an exclusive store. Only people that she knew would come.
Mm-hmm.
So she had friends come from the US, and they would bring her, things from the US, and she would resell them there.
Right.
And then she would ask my mom to make certain dresses. So she would give my mom a picture. She'd say, make me a dress this size or whatever. And my mom would make it. And on Tuesday, she would go deliver it and get paid. Well, Rebecca lived with her mom, who was even older than her. And her mom was not very patient. So my mom would say, we're going to Rebecca. So we knew that on Tuesday we would go to Rebecca's. And then after Rebecca's, we would walk over to the church area, to the church, and we get treated to something fun out. We would go pray and then go get treated for like churros or something like that. It was a fun outing. But just getting to Rebecca's house was like, we're going to Rebecca. So we knew that once we got to Rebecca's house, we had to be like, really sit still and not speak.
Right.
And my brother, who follows me, he's very like rambunctious, very active. So he was constantly getting reprimanded by Rebecca's mom. So it was always a reminder, we're going to Rebecca's, stay quiet. So I didn't realize that became a program in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how much it affected me, because I remember working in corporate and working at this company where I was a director of training, and I was managing 18 restaurants. I could speak and I could do everything. When it came to the Monday meetings or the monthly meetings in the boardroom with the president, vice president, with the other supervisors, I had a hard time speaking up. I would sit there and take notes, but I would never be willingly participate.
Right.
Because I didn't know that unconsciously my brain was saying, it's time to sit there and be still and be quiet. And I kept seeing that throughout my career, that I would tend to do that.
Interesting.
And so once I had the breakthrough, like, oh, get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I use it to be observant of what's around me. So now it's more like, let me see what's going on here. Not because I'm not willing to speak, but now I see it differently.
Right.
But that was a big breakthrough, to not allow myself to speak because I was told that to stay quiet.
Wow. That's crazy, because like you say, it's these little moments, right, that end up playing this huge impact as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I tell you, one of my big breakthroughs was the sense of, my mom was always the working parent. For those who don't know, my dad was in prison, and he would come out from time to time, and it was a short period of time, and then boom, right? He always got these these longer sentences. And so my mom was always having to be the provider, the breadwinner. And so I grew up with my grandparents. But it was interesting because I always went back to I felt abandoned by my mom, right? But then I go back and I do this breakthrough work, and it's like, wow, you know what? No, she didn't abandon me. My dad abandoned me. It wasn't my mom. So my mom was out there providing. So again, I swap it, make it a positive thing. And what was positive about that? My mom was able to provide for us. We were able to have a roof over our head, food on the table, right? But she needed assistance through my grandparents to be able to give us that. And so my grandparents, stepped up to the plate when my dad wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And so my mom just I got to give her credit. And just till a few years ago, I was like, you know what, Mom? I got to really thank you for what you did. And, it was so impactful to both of us, because I told my mom, I know I've never told you this, right? And to be able to release whatever that was, right? And you look at it through like where it popped up in your life, and it pops up in work, and people don't believe it, right? People don't believe that what happens in your personal transfers to your business, and what happens in your business transfers to your personal.
They're
right?
connected.
They're connected, no matter how people put it.
We're one person. We're not two people.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a business persona or a personal persona.
Correct.
We are the same.
Correct. And I mean, I just feel that, sometimes us as entrepreneurs don't want to do that digging deep, right? To see why it is that we hold back on what we can do, right? We always are like, oh no, like I can't do this, right? And then they're like, well, if only I knew why, right? And so people start asking the question, why do I do this? And then it pops up, right? And people are like, oh, that's not the reason. Well, remember how we say in NLP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to start hitting you and hitting you and hitting you until finally something got to give. And what's that gives is our health at that point, right? And so for people who don't know, like when I was doing NLP with Anna, there was times where I just felt like crap, right? And I was like, why can't I control my sugar levels? Like, why are my sugar levels so high? And it was the anger and rage that was within me that I didn't even know that's what it was causing, right? And we address these like negative emotions that are just causing so much chaos within the body, right?
And I'm glad you bring that up because knowing what we know with NLP and the emotions and knowing and what I just share about always staying quiet, well, that affects in our body, it affects our lungs.
Mm-hmm.
So for the longest time, I wouldn't just get a cold. I would get bronchitis.
Wow.
Because I wasn't speaking my truth.
Right.
So after I had the breakthrough, my first breakthrough, bronchitis is like non-existent.
Right.
Like I just got over a cold. In the past, that cold would have turned into bronchitis, borderline pneumonia.
Right.
But because I did the work and I able to speak my truth, that's no longer an issue.
It's crazy, right? And we're talking about an emotion, guys, an emotion that creates all this chaos. And I go back and I look at, why certain health conditions have popped up in my life. And I go back and I'm like, wow, this was created because of this. And then you address it and out of nowhere, you get that sense of relief. I mean, so, my anger and rage was towards my dad, right? Because he wasn't there. And, people say, oh, you got daddy issues. No, it's like, it's not a daddy issue at that point. It's more like, you know what? Like, damn, I've always held on to a grudge, right? And when people are holding on to things, it builds up internally as a dis-ease, right? And so once I was able to address that anger and that rage, my sugar levels just like, they just dropped out of nowhere. My A1C, which was not able to be read on a blood, it was just say over 14, right? And it doesn't read it. And it drops down to 9 a month later. Like that is clinically not, it's impossible. My doctor was like, oh, maybe there was a misread. And he goes, no, there couldn't have been a misread because from 3 months prior, it was the same thing. So how does it drop so much? And so I told him, I did some stuff, I had some fun, and he was like, what? And so I explained to him, roughly what was going on. And he goes, I believe in that whole thing about, your negative emotions that do hold you back, cause this, this pain and anguish that then transfers into your health.
Yes.
And so it's just, I tell people like, you know what, like I'm a firm believer of this, because I mean, even after doing my breakthrough work, it just made me a better person in business, made me a better person in my relationships, made me a better person, more importantly, with myself. And being able to love myself for who I am today and from where I started and where I got to today, right? So, it's just, I tell people, the moment you're ready to address what's been holding you back, it's like a slingshot, right? We're just holding it back and holding it back. And the moment you target these negative emotions, you just you shoot out, you propel, right? And that's why I feel like some entrepreneurs don't understand is like, yeah, it's okay. We all go through these hard times in our life, but it's how we address it. And sometimes people don't want to address their past so that they can better who they can be. I see so many people out there that have this great potential, but something's holding them back, and it's them, right? Nobody else. Nobody else. I mean, I can tell you, I went through it. You went through it, and I don't even know how to tell people. Like, you know what? I could only present something to them, and it's them if they take it or not. But it's always there.
The choice is theirs.
Yeah.
If they want to. The thing is that in life if you are constantly seeing something, a pattern that constantly repeats itself, it's because your unconscious mind, it's ready for you to address it. The fact that you're not addressing it, that little tiny thing starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Until you finally address it. And sometimes it's too late. Sometimes it explodes.
Right.
So we all had those things that if we don't address it, it's going to show up.
Yeah.
It's like, here. Like for me, I didn't address sitting down, being that little quiet little girl. It kept showing up until like my last job in corporate.
Yeah.
Where I had a boss that now I see that now that I'm on the other side, I see what she was projecting on me and I see how I was perceiving it, but I didn't speak up enough to the point that it made me sick.
Right.
And that's how I ended up leaving corporate America.
Right.
So once I saw that, it was like, that's like, it showed up here. And not till that moment where, oh my gosh, I was terrified. I was scared because I had just signed a mortgage, for buying my condo. And now I have this job and I'm like, I'm not speaking up, or when I speak up, it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was in this abusive relationship and, and it hurt. But until I addressed that, I didn't get better.
Right.
And it just kept showing up in my life for, since it started at 3 years old till I was in my 40s.
And it's crazy, right? And people don't realize like it's gonna be popping up. And and that's where like I want to ask you, because you say you went from corporate America to, being the entrepreneur. Would you say that was your biggest risk you ever took?
Absolutely. Because I left corporate without a plan. I didn't have a plan. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Right.
All I wanted to do was I wanted to get better because I didn't even see it. My friends were the ones that saw me going to like this, like, it's like I went into this deep hole. And once my friends like shook me up and said, you got to get out of here.
Right.
It's when I first made the first step. And then at that point, all I wanted was like, I don't want to go back to that. What am I going to do? And I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. It was the scariest thing because, like I said, I had a mortgage and I was like, how am I going to pay for this?
Right.
I don't want to like lose my house, mess up my credit, and then come knocking at the door and say, Mom, can I move in with you because I just failed?
Right.
I didn't want that. But that was probably the scariest thing I ever did.
Right. And looking back at it, like, how do you see that experience now?
There was a lot of growth because I had, again, it was the beginning of figuring out what happened, how did I get here, and now I think it's like one of my biggest assets to be able to say, you know what, if I got through that, I could get through anything.
Right, that's awesome. So you took a tour of McKinley, right? Before jumping on here with me. And, these kids are typically like the 9-year-old to 18, roughly. So what would you tell, let's just get the medium. What would you tell your 13-year-old self if you're able to go back and knowing what you know today, what would you tell them? What would you tell little Anna at 13?
What would I tell Anna at 13? So I'm looking back in my life. Where would I be at 13? So I was probably in junior high. And I would tell myself, speak up, say what you think, say what you feel, and do the things that make you happy and take a risk because it's really fun on the other side.
That's awesome. And then, just for like shits and giggles. So when you were 13, what was the one thing like you valued the most at 13? Like what was important, like what was your like that what were you valuing at that time?
What was I valuing? It was really being around my family. My family was
Really?
really important. Yeah.
And I mean, they still are today because I know everything you do for your family. I mean, that's a whole other episode if we get there.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look at these kids and they're valuing the shoes that they wear, right? And it's like, man, how funny is it that, I see 13-year-olds and they have like, they don't want to put a crease in their shoe because, they're $200 Jordans or whatever, right? And I'm like, man, I wasn't even like that, right? But you said family, so I mean that has value to it. Right. So I can't even ask you like, what do you think about it now? Right. Like, but, I just trip out sometimes because, to me, that's the same thing at 13, all I had was family that was around.
Mm-hmm.
And, but these kids here, it's like, sometimes they have nothing to value because, they're just, they feel that they've been abandoned. They've been like left alone. So, after like a little story about McKinley, what's going on here. What do you see about this program that's here?
So something that I haven't shared with a lot of people is when I was it was in between my junior and senior year, my mom had registered us for this program called Migrant Education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was selected from my school to go spend 6 weeks at UCLA.
Yeah.
So it was a whole different experience. And in that experience, I grew as a person.
Mm-hmm.
My leadership skills grew as well. It gave me the idea to someday give back to the world. And I've always had this idea that at some point in my life, and be careful what you think, because I always kept saying, at some point in my life, I kept pushing it and pushing it. And I feel like it's getting closer and closer.
Right.
I wanted to create, I wanted to create a nonprofit where it would help children between the ages of like 13 and 18
Mm-hmm.
and really teach them about the things that they're not exposed to.
Right.
I mean, I was exposed to museums, art. I mean, I met Fernando Valenzuela. I was on TV. I was exposed to a lot of things that I'm super grateful for. And it made me realize how many people are underprivileged and they're not exposed to that.
Yeah.
So as I was on the tour earlier today and things that were being explained to me, it reminded me of that goal. And I said, why do I have to wait and create that nonprofit? Why not get involved in something that already exists and help what's already here? So it's like, you know what? I'm inspired to work harder to give back to this community.
Right.
Like there was something that I connected with here.
It's amazing because I mean, like me too, I had the connection here the moment I stepped foot here, right? It's, sometimes, I had the privilege of having a mentor in the construction industry, which ended up being my uncle. And, because of him, I was able to do what I'm being able to do today. So, I look up to him so much, right? And these kids don't have that sometimes, right? And they don't have the people to just give them that little push, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I just feel that we can give them that little tug. And you know what, dude? Like, it's better on the other side, like we say, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we do NLP at the end of the whole course, it's what's on the other side. What's on the other side of our heart? What's on the other side of our mind? And it's beautiful because sometimes we think that the grass is greener on the other side, right? And it's not, because it's within ourselves to make that our own pastures green again.
Mm-hmm.
It's our time to water ourselves, fertilize it, and just let it do its thing.
We have everything we need inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Everything is there. Because if you remember, when we are born with a clean slate. We are born fearless. We are born powerful.
Yeah.
It's still in there.
It is.
Yeah, we just got to dig it out.
That's it. That's exactly it. We got to dig it out, work on our own garden, and just be able to produce our own fruits at that time.
Yeah.
But, Anna, I want to thank you very much, for being part of today's podcast. And so, I just tell everybody, like, you know what, like, Anna's a great friend. I call her like my other sister, so, just thinking that, just having that in mind. I mean, Anna is a great resource for anybody that's looking to do any deep dive work as well. And we here at Avoca Construction and all the other things that we work on, we're here to better our communities around us. We're here to build our communities around us. And so with that being said, Anna, again, thank you very much for being part of this. We look forward to possibly a part 2 where we go a little deeper into what it is that NLP is. And again, you guys, I just want to thank you guys for your time, and we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, everybody.